The BVI has a population of just over 28,000 residents, and 8,000 of those persons are children. Now, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has done what they describe as a situational analysis of children residing in the BVI. That analysis was done in collaboration with the government of the BVI, and the report was tabled in Parliament recently by Health Minister Ronnie Skelton. However, Kathy, there have been some issues with this report.
Yes.
Now, some residents in the territory haven't taken too kindly to some of the concerns raised in this report, but it's important that we point out that this report, UNICEF says, was done not only in collaboration with the government, but various stakeholders locally, civic stakeholders, yes, NGOs, the police, magistrates, lawyers, teachers, and everyday people here also voiced what their concerns or commendations were of situations involving children in the territory. And what we must point out is that UNICEF stated that every single bit of information that's included in this report was not done until it was confirmed by at least 3 separate sources. And so what can be stated definitively is that this report is fact-based, and remember that the government was also involved, whether or not it's complementary, but there are also complementary things in this report. But unfortunately, we have to start with some of the not so complementary things that have been brought up in this report. Let's start with the situation involving migrants and their children residing in the territory. Education Minister Myron Walwyn is the one who brought attention to this concern being raised in this report, and it's not the first time that he's doing this, but this time around he's reminding that in the constitutional review that's coming up, the status of children born to migrants in the territory must be prioritized, and this is why. UNICEF says that the rules of citizenship and belonger status in the BVI are complex and difficult to understand, with some persons who were interviewed stating that it also involves some level of discretion in the decision-making process. And in alluding to this report, the Minister of Education pointed out that why it's significant that this is resolved is that unless, if children can't obtain, be regularized here in the BVI, they may have a similar situation in their children, their parents' country of residence, and this places their status in somewhat of a limbo as they might end up being stateless. And who would want their kids to be in that kind of a situation?
While you do not want your kids to be in that situation, your children tends to feel that tension. They have to coexist with persons who are resident or have their statuses here in the very school system, and it's a feeling that transcends. But what I want to bring your attention back to, that this is not, while you said it, it's not the first time that Honorable Walwyn is bringing up this situation. Back in 2013, when he brought the situation up, he alluded to the British Nationality Act, which he said is more divisive than uniting, and is something that should be done away with in an instance. We also had Honorable Alvaro Maduro Keynes chiming in on this very issue, and she spoke specifically back in 2014 to the issue of children who are born here, not necessarily of parents who are resident here or have some sort of a status, having to pay an immigration fee to stay here. This seems to be extreme, and she feels that, you know, this really should be done away with. And when you follow the blogs, the comments of persons who contributed to that dialogue online, persons tend to agree to this. If laws says, okay, I cannot have a status until a certain time or until a certain thing is done, at least don't pressure my parents who are paying a tax already to have to pay immigration for me to stay here.
And it's significant to note, Kathy, that why these issues have always been there, but why they're gaining greater prominence now is because there is a larger migrant population in the BVI, and that migrant population is half of those 20,000, of that 28,000 here in the BVI. And the health minister, we should point out, and this, let's just point out when this immigrant boom took place. According to the information garnered by UNICEF, between 1990 and 2010, the population in the BVI was increased by immigrants by over 80%. That's 82.2%. And this is not without merit. The health minister himself pointed out in Parliament this week in responding to concerns about expats being able to obtain jobs in the BVI that the expats are obtaining jobs where they are necessary. And the hullabaloo that's being created about expats being here getting jobs and BVI people being here and not being able to get jobs, he says it's some BVI nationals are just creating the problems for themselves that don't exist, Kathy. But going back to the issue at the core of the concerns that we're discussing, how exactly should parents go about getting their kids regularized, that's migrant parents in the territory?
Okay, I briefly run across this Belongers and National Status Handbook with a number of questions and answers. And my attention was drawn to the section where it asks the question, what happens to a child born in the BVI, but who does not become a British overseas citizen at birth? The answer to that is that child takes the nationality of his or her parents. In time, he or she will remain in the territory, or he or she is entitled to be registered to become a British overseas territory citizens. The governor has the discretion, to register any child under 18 years of age who is in the territory at any time. This is what this booklet says. It also asks another question. When is a child who is under 18 years who was born in the BVI entitled to be registered as a British overseas territory citizen on application? The answer to that is, if the child resides in the BVI for the first 10 years of his or her life and was not outside of the British Virgin Islands for more than 90 days in any of those years, he or she can be registered as a British overseas territory citizen. If at any time after the child's birth the father or mother is granted a certificate of residence or gets belonger status, the child can be registered as a British overseas territory citizen.
And so here on The Big Story, what we try to do, Kathy, is to break down the information and provide the facts that our viewers need to know. And this is a start. These are facts in a nutshell, but this is a start. So what they need to do now is get out there, get online, get to the relevant agencies to get the information so that they can be informed, so that their kids and their friends can be informed. But one of the recommendations that I would make, and that I've heard some persons also make, is that just as how when I came here initially in order to apply for my work permit, at the point when I got the card, the Labor Department held an hour-long seminar where I was given a brief, myself and others were given a brief rundown of what the rules and regulations are as it pertains to the work permit process and what my rights are under the system. And so I think a similar session should be staged by the Immigration Department to just in a nutshell inform persons of what the rules and regulations are as it pertains to their immigration status and any potential expansion of their families if that's going to take place, or if they choose to reside here wish to reside here in the territory permanently.
You have a pamphlet, internet age, you go online and get stuff. The Labor Department can furnish persons, immigrants coming in with these information that can help ease tensions like this. Yes, in some instances, these are things that we are not comfortable as is. It's the law. We have to respect the law of any country. If we are to compare some of these laws to other countries around the world, they do not differ very much, right? So it's the law and we need to follow it, and there are ways that we can still do things to feel as one people and come together as one and live happy in the BVI.
And there's also the issue of responsibility, individual responsibility.
Yes.
If you're living, even in your own country, you have to be aware of your rights. So
Yes.
if you're living in another man's country, especially if you hope to adopt that country as your own, then you have to make yourself aware of your rights as well.
Totally agree.
The recommendation that the UNICEF made regarding this issue of migrant children in the BVI was that the BVI should seek to abolish discrimination in legislation regarding migrant children or children born to immigrants living in the BVI, and also remove the need for baptism forms as part of the process of obtaining a birth certificate, because apparently you have to show that your child has been baptized. But UNICEF also asks, what of parents who aren't Christians?
Yes.
You know, you have atheists, agnostics, and other yet to be defined.
A totally bigger and different discussion forum for this one. But these are all things that I agree with UNICEF that needs to be looked at. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but the possibility exists.
And what this issue also speaks to, Kathy, is a deeper issue, a deeper challenge in the BVI, where sometimes it seems as if the expats or the belongers are being pitted against each other, which is why some persons took the concerns that were raised so personally. And what UNICEF says is that there is an implied situation here involving tensions between locals and expats, and clearly this was spoken to by persons involved in those focus groups. In fact, UNICEF says social tension is evident in everyday life as BVI landers and non-BVI landers attempt to peacefully coexist. The issue of BVI landers and non-BVI landers needs to be decisively resolved in a just manner, since the impacts are felt in all the social services, interpersonal and intergroup and intra-community relations. I mean, BVI Islanders, while it's your country and we understand that you're passionate about it, you know, but at the end of the day, UNICEF says, remember that the expats who are here, the majority of them, if not all, are here legally. They're contributing their labor, they're contributing their knowledge, they're contributing to the various tax and deductible schemes here in the territory as well. And so it's not as if they're getting a free pass.
I know, and you know, I can attest to that very scenario that you talk about. I can remember going for my NHI card, the big crowd out there, and there was this one person who decided that she has to go to the front of the line simply because she is from here. It does not feel well. It does not spell to the one Caribbean that we are striving towards being. And, you know, it takes away from who the core of the BVI is, because I can tell you there are a lot of BVI Islanders that are so wonderful, so warm and so welcoming. So there might just be a few who are taken away from it, but, you know, we still got to work together and live as one.
Most definitely. And with that, we leave it right there on the big story for this week. But do remember to check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and jtvlive.net as we continue perusing this situational analysis of children in the BVI by UNICEF. On behalf of Kathy Richards, I'm PTK Coombs.